Welcome to our Hawaii Business Spotlight series, episode 2. My name is Antonio Vega, and I'm joined today by a Marine Corps veteran and the CEO of a local distillery, Ko'olau Distillery, Mr. Eric Dill.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good. Good to see you, Eric. So I want so I learned about the Ko'olau Distillery from something that you did very recently. You started producing hand sanitizer and donating to like first responders and all that. And I want to learn a little bit more about that. But before we get to that, I wanted to learn about Ko'olau Distillery, how you guys got started, because you seem to be pretty new. I think you've only been around for a couple years.
Yeah, we formed in 2017. We started producing whiskey in 2018, and then we bottled our first bottle February of 2019. And
Wow. Okay.
in about a year's time frame from bottling that first bottle, we were in over 350 locations here in the island chain.
Wow.
Started off in some really we're fortunate to get picked up by some really noteworthy restaurants, like Nobu, Merriman's, some of the Roy's franchise, things like that. People that know good whiskey were picking us up, so that was a real compliment to us.
Wow.
And Safeway, Foodland, Tamora's took us on fairly quickly, like right out the gate, and so it was a lot of affirmation that we were making a good product with really quality organizations like that taking us on.
That's great to hear. So the whiskey that you guys produce, is it just one brand, the Old Poly Road, I believe?
Yeah, we're only making Old Poly Road whiskey right now. Eventually, we will release so we make a bourbon mash, but we market it as American whiskey.
Gotcha.
To be a bourbon, there's three main rules. The main rules are, first one's got to be made in America. We're in America. I get that on tours sometimes. People are actually like, but you're in Hawaii.
Well, it is a state.
Yeah, so I point out that we are a state. So that's the number one rule. It's got to be made in America, because bourbon is just the proper name for America's expression of whiskey. So Scotch is Scottish whiskey, Irish whiskey, Canadian whiskey. American whiskey's proper name is bourbon. But to be bourbon, you've got to be made in America. Your mash bill's got to be more than 50% corn, and you've got to be aged in a new American white oak barrel. And we will reuse our barrels, so that even though we're making a bourbon recipe, you can't call it a bourbon on the bottle, even though what's inside the bottle is essentially bourbon. But what we will do is I struck a deal with Corteva Farms up on the North Shore, great organization, and they are going to be providing the distillery non-GMO, non-herbicide applied corn that's grown up on the North Shore, and we're going to make a bourbon that's 100% Hawaiian corn. Right now, there is Hawaiian corn in every bottle, but it's a percentage just because it's hard to get. But with Dill with Corteva Farms, we'll be able to produce a bourbon that is 100% Hawaiian corn. So we're really excited about that one. We've actually done some tasters, and I tasted it at the 6-month mark, and that was pretty exceptional. So
wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So
Ian, my partner, just walked in, but he's a sweaty mess from running right now. So I don't know if you want him on camera.
That's all right. If he wants to say hi.
You can beat.
Aloha. How you doing?
Hey, it's all right. So it was you two guys that started the company, right?
There was 3 entities that started the company. It was Ian and I are the veterans, and then we also an individual named Heather Pence, who's got a background in marketing and beverages here on the island, is also a owner in the company.
Cool. All right. And you guys are located in Kaneohe?
We are actually in Kailua.
Okay.
The business address is in Kaneohe, but the business location. So in other words, our billing address is in Kaneohe, but our business itself is in Kailua. I personally live in Kailua.
Gotcha.
And we're in the Kapa'a industrial area. So just off of Kapa'a Quarry Road. It's a great little spot back up in there.
And that is where you guys offer the tours when you're doing that. I know right now you're not, but when you're doing that, that would be in the Kailua place.
It is. It's in Kailua. It is great. A lot of people will come over. A lot of local people will come over and hit the Saturday afternoon or the Friday afternoon tours, and then they'll go to Kailua for dinner afterwards or something like that. And what it is, it's the tour was really popular. I mean, you can look at our Yelp reviews, and it's pretty positive. What we do, we don't have the history, of say one of these distilleries in Kentucky, and big massive machinery to look at and be awed of. So what we do is we're fascinated by the science. So that's what we do. We talk about the science. We run a Whiskey 101 class. So how whiskey is made in general, and then how we specifically make it here with the equipment that they have, the local corn, and how that gets introduced into the product. I mean, people are really crazy. They're amazed to find out. I mean, at first we started off with like buying corn and shucking it ourselves and using a knife to cut the kernels off. We're not much past that now. We're still at the individual corn level, but we're, like I said, with the deal with Corteva, that's going to bump us up to 100% Hawaiian corn, and it'll come already shucked and dehydrated, which will be great. So we're really looking forward to that addition. But back to the tours. They, we talk about the ingredients, and we talk about the 5 steps in the distillation process, and then our whiskey making process, and then we move on to the 6th and little slightly unknown but most important step of the process, which is drinking the whiskey. So we do a tasting at the end. So it's fun, and Ian's got good jokes, so we make. It ends up being a really fun experience for most people, and getting to see how the product is actually made from start to finish. And then every single one of our tours is either Ian or I or both of us. So the guy that's actually making the whiskey is the one that's giving you the tour. So
cool.
We'll have other people there helping, but the person actually giving the tour will be one of the two of us. So that's also unique as well. I mean, you got to get down to a small distillery to get the guy actually making the whiskey, giving you the tour usually.
True.
Unless you're paying for some behind the scenes, stuff.
Right. So, and that's about an hour long, right? The tour.
Yeah, it ends up. It's supposed to be an hour. We always end up. What's great about the tours is we encourage people to be collaborative, and the more collaborative they are, ask questions. It makes for a more enjoyable tour for both them and us. And it just naturally happens. People are afraid to ask questions, and finally someone, breaks the ice. And then we get to asking questions and discussions, and they usually go over. It's reality. And I get nerdy talking about whiskey. So that causes it to go over time wise as well.
That's good. I think that's the kind of stuff that people want to know about, right? So yeah.
And then what's really cool is, our manufacturer's license allows us to sell out of the distillery, and so you can actually get a bottle there at the distillery, and we'll sign it right there. And so whiskey people actually love that. And then we get a lot of people that are here, before COVID that, they were looking for unique gifts to take back with them.
Definitely.
Getting a hand signed bottle with inscribed to, whoever they were going to give it to, by one of us, is certainly a unique gift. So that was really, really popular actually. And we were also doing private tours as well. You'd get organizations like, maybe a unit over at Pearl Harbor or something. They'd set up a private tour, and we'd those were really popular as well. So all pre-COVID, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. So question though, like, did you or Ian have a background in producing whiskey? Like, was there a big learning curve when you guys decided to do this? How did that all go?
Absolutely, there was a big learning curve. And so the first part of making whiskey is just making a beer. So if you have home brewing as a background, that's the first step.
Yeah.
And then what you're doing is you're distilling the alcohol out of the beer that you've made. So you're making a specific beer. For bourbon, you're making a corn beer, and then you're distilling the alcohol out of the beer. So you make about a 10% corn beer, and then you distill that 10% out, and then you got your whiskey, and then you get it in a barrel, start aging it, which brings in some of the more amazing flavors like the vanillas and the caramels, which come from the tannin of the oak. So. The background, though, and where I got my experience is one of my best friends owns a distillery in Indianapolis, which we invested with, and I spent a lot of time with Travis, distilling whiskey with him, learning from him, that's where I learned it. And there is a lot of information out there if you want to learn. I mean, basically, I self-educated myself. In addition to what I learned from Travis. So it's been a steep learning curve, I would say, for a long time, but I kind of enjoy that. I've done a lot of post college formal education that required a lot of writing the thesis for a master's requires a lot of personal time, I guess. Like you're not given an assignment and then you finish it and turn an assignment. I mean, writing a thesis is a lot of research and putting thoughts together and formulating a cogent idea, set of ideas. And I actually went through that process 3 different times for 3 different master programs. So learning this was just it was right in line with what I'd been doing previously. So it was actually natural for me to spend that kind of self-study that's required to make yourself proficient at it is very similar to, doing a master's program. So, and it's continuous. Like, I am constantly still looking up things and understanding. I'm getting it more and more, a more finite level of understanding, like, how an enzyme actually interacts with the sugar, at different pH levels and stuff like that. So there's a lot of chemistry, a lot of biology, and a lot of physics in distilling.
Yeah. So any interesting mistakes along the way? Any bad batches, I assume? Early on, maybe, I guess, but now you kind of got it down.
Actually, we just had one recently. So our stills run off of water heating elements, and I had one coming through, and it should have been tasting a lot better than it was. It had a little bit of punch at the end, and you got the water heating elements have to be covered, or they'll burn up. And it was covered, it was filled up, but then as you're distilling the alcohol out of the boiler, your level of liquid is going to be going down. And so it was covered enough, but it wasn't to start. But then as you distill the alcohol, the level went down, so that water heating element got exposed and it started burning. Started melting, actually. And so so that little punch at the back end that I was tasting, the burnt, that was the water heating element that was burning. So we will not be using that batch.
I figure.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things to learn. Like, I mean, fighting the heat here is a challenge that a lot of distillers don't have to deal with. And, your yeast, the yeast that we use is a really, really good yeast for making whiskey. It does not work over 90 degrees. A lot of times in our building, it's 105 degrees inside the metal building that we're in. So what we had to do was we basically built, it's not air conditioned inside our building, but I did build an air conditioned space for our yeast. And so they are happily living at 77 degrees inside our fermentation chamber, which is a insulated little area. And so they got an air conditioned condo to work in. Ian and I are sweating out on the.
Yeah, I don't have that either.
Yeah. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I didn't think about, Hawaii, I'm sure it has its own unique challenges that you would not come across in most places in the mainland. So
yeah, and there's been some great discoveries as well. I mean, we knew I always knew that the water here was exceptional. We live on a natural water filter. When I really started studying the water here and its properties, I didn't realize how good it was. Like we have some of the best water on the planet.
Yeah.
Just drinking water, we have some of the best water on the planet. There's no reason to buy bottled water,
right?
Other than the convenience of having it in a convenient vessel to walk around with.
Sure.
But, all of our water is artesian on the island, which that it comes from aquifers, which means it comes from aquifers. It's rainwater that's been filtered through the soil and before it ends up in the aquifer. They say Hawaii's Board of Water says on average that a raindrop here will matriculate through the soil for about 3 decades before it ends up in an aquifer. So we have some of the purest rain on the planet because there's nothing around us. And so we don't have a lot of ambient pollution from nearby cities or this or that, and just what we produce ourselves. And then so we have pure rain, and then it filters through volcanic soil and rock for 30 years, and it picks up phenomenal alcohol or mineral content rather, and it's very alkaline. So we test our water all the time, both upstream and downstream, and it's very alkaline water, which means it's got a sweetness to it and a silky finish to it, which is really great for whiskey. So
nice.
If you've tried the Old Poly Road whiskey, and a lot of people, almost everyone, their first reaction is remarking about the smoothness of it. A lot of that has to do with the water. I mean, a huge amount of it has to do with the water. So I didn't plan that. I didn't plan that the water was going to be great here. I knew it was, but I didn't know how great it was until started working with it. And then really, when we started doing our water testing and stuff like that, and I'm like, wait, there's no iron in this water? That's really important for whiskey making. Like you can't plan. So one of those lucky things for us, I guess.
Wow. Yeah. Well, there you go. When you try something that few people have tried before, you often end up both making mistakes and discovering new things that actually work to your benefit. So, that's great. All right. Yeah. So, I think it was in April that I read about you starting to produce hand sanitizer, of course, obviously, because of the whole COVID-19 thing. And, more than ever before, people have been worrying about, cleaning their hands and, disinfecting and all that. So how do you adapt to making hand sanitizer from whiskey? Does it just take longer to do, or what's the difference there? Because I really don't know much about these things, but I'd love to get a general idea.
Yeah, it was an education process, but we were, I mean, for a person that distills for a living, that it was a fairly quick transition. We spent a couple nights, around the dry erase board with markers, doing a lot of math, calculating, volume percentages and things like that. What we do is we follow the World Health Organization's protocol for making hand sanitizer. They have two, one that uses isopropyl alcohol as a base and the other that uses ethyl alcohol as a base. And what we make is ethyl alcohol. That's ethanol. It's the stuff that makes us feel good.
Right.
So there's really 3 ingredients in the World Health Organization protocol. It's you got to start with 95% ethyl alcohol, and you dilute that down to 80%, and then you use hydrogen peroxide at a certain percentage, and also a humectant, which is basically just a moisturizer, and they prescribe glycerol. Which is basically vegetable glycerin. And that's just to keep the skin from drying out. So those 3 ingredients put together and some water, and that's what you make it with. But it's actually extremely effective. It's more effective than what you typically buy in a store. What you typically buy in a store is 70% alcohol base. This is 80%, and it's not a 10% increase in effectiveness. That additional 10%. Let's put it this way: when you want to store like say you wanted to make peach moonshine, if you're putting peaches into clear moonshine, above 80%, nothing will grow.
Okay.
Like,
wow.
It will preserve.
Yeah.
Below 80%, you run the risk of, that peach decaying or something growing that you don't want to grow. So you once you get above that 80% level with alcohol, nothing lives. So being an 80% based alcohol, it's significantly more effective sanitizer than what you would if you're getting a 70%, which is, name a big name hand sanitizer, there's a 70%. So it's interesting. It's interesting that the FDA allows, 70% hand sanitizer, knowing that, but business. So
sure.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, for us, it was, to answer your question more specifically, it was, a lot of it was just figuring out formulas. We had to change the way we distilled because you can't call it whiskey if you pull it off the still at higher than 80% alcohol by volume, or rather 160 proof, because you're distilling too much of the flavor out. The higher proof you get, you're getting closer to vodka, and then you get to a certain level, what you call grain neutral spirit. So it's so pure that it's kind of independent of whatever the original grain was. So Everclear is considered a grain neutral spirit. So, we were really having to crank up we were asking a lot of the still to just run at 95% ABV or 190 proof, and pull it off the still at 190 proof. So, but we got pretty good at it. It just involved making some adjustments. And fortunately we weren't starting from zero. It's what we do for a living, is make alcohol. So we were just having to make really significantly higher proof alcohol.
Yeah. So I assume then it would be relatively easy to switch back to producing whiskey. Then you just have to change some of the settings, I guess. Yeah,
there's certain things you just got to be really careful about, because you have to denature the alcohol, and that you can't use anything that's been denatured. The substance you use to denature alcohol, I can't put anything whiskey related in that container anymore.
Oh, okay.
So it will ruin it.
Gotcha.
It's pretty potent stuff. So
yeah. And then the hand sanitizer that you guys produce, you provide to like first responders, people, in the hospitals and stuff like that?
We do. So what we're making here, we're providing free to first responders, essential healthcare workers. So like someone that works in an emergency room, and essential civil service. So like the guys down at the ports that are keeping the port running, or guys that, keeping the electricity flowing, that kind of stuff. So we made that decision. It would be those three groups. Both Dean and I just have experience being in places where those things have broken down. And so we said that's who we're gonna give it to and keep it going. Yeah. We are at a level now in our production that we're able to sell to people outside of those groups. So we've been just in the last 2 days we've started selling, and we sell at 3 levels: 1 gallon, 5 gallon, 55 and 275 gallon containers of FDA approved. We got our FDA approval and WHO protocol produced hand sanitizer. So, organizations out there that in Hawaii that need it, we're not going to sell it to anyone off the island. We're going to keep it here to try to, get things help. There's going to be so many requirements for cleaning and disinfecting and keeping workers safe when they turn things back on, that there's people are asking me to ship it out of the state. And I'm like, no way. We need it here too bad, so. And here's the thing. Like, I had someone hitting me up. They want, hand sanitizer, and they're like, "Oh, I'm just going to order it on Amazon." I'm like, you can't. Put that in your shopping cart and see what happens. Yeah, they will not ship you 80% alcohol hand sanitizer on Amazon.
right. So then if people here in Hawaii that are in those groups that you mentioned and can actually qualify to purchase that, where should they go? Should they go to your website? Should they call you
just
up?
go to the website. It's right there on the front before you even get past the RU21 banner. If you want to buy it, there's a link. And if you fall into the categories that we're giving away for free, there's a way to contact us for that as well. So
perfect. And
that's really easy. It's www.Ko'olau Distillery, all one word, .com. So KOOLAUDISTILLERY.com.
Yeah, and I was reading that eventually, once things calm down and we can get kind of back to normal, of course, you are planning to open up the tours and all that stuff again, but you're thinking of maybe still producing some of the hand sanitizer, but also giving it to people on tours and things like that, right?
Yeah, we'll give it to people on tours. It'll be available there, and then my intention is to make sure that restaurants and bars have it available as well, particularly at the bars. Bartenders always got some there available. I mean, they have the ability to wash their hands, which is the best thing you can possibly do with COVID. Yeah. But then, like if they have I want the bars to have it there available so they can, make it available to a customer who can hit their hands real quick, So as, glasses are being touched and exchanged and all that stuff, we're keeping our people working at the bars safe as well.
Yeah. Awesome. So again, Ko'olauDistillery.com, right? That's what it was?
All one word.
Okay. Ko'olau. Perfect. I will include the link in the show, in the description and all that stuff. So people can just click on it and check it out. Eric, thank you so much. I learned a bit about making whiskey.
Well, you come take the tour yourself. You'll love it.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. All right. See ya.
Have a good day.